Well, g'day throttlers. I am back from my Himalayan motorcycle journey with Roaming Horizons, and I had an amazing time. But it wasn't all roses. I had a little bit of illness and I had a couple of challenges that may have been able to be prevented if I prepared a little bit better before I left. So what I wanted to do is put together this video, which is my top 10 hot tips on preparing for a Himalayan motorcycle journey. Well, a Himalayan journey in general if you're traveling into altitude. So not only is this a top 10, but this is the first of a 5 or a 6 part series into my Himalayan trip. So I'm going to share everything with you on the way, everything that we saw. It was an amazing trip. So make sure you hit subscribe, tap that bell icon so you can be notified each week when a video comes up about this Himalayan trip. And I really hope you enjoy, and I really hope you consider traveling across to India to travel in the Himalayas on a motorcycle, because it is an amazing experience. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Anyway, let's dig into the top 10 and we'll talk about more at the end of this video. Okay, number one, and most importantly, is before you go to the Himalayas, you need to go and see your GP, book in to see your doctor and get a health check. Make sure that you're physically able to cope with the demands that is altitude and off-road riding. Very, very important. While you're at the doctors, talk to them about your vaccination plan. Traveling into India, there are some vaccinations that are recommended to you. So make sure you talk about them and book them in the lead up to make sure that they're effective before you actually land in India. Also, talk about preventative medication. When you get to India, there's chances are that you'll get deli belly. So you want to have something to stop it coming out the bottom. You want to have something to stop it coming out the top. And you want to have some painkillers and some other things at your ready when you're traveling, because there's nothing more unpleasant than having to ride up to 10 hours a day with no toilet facilities and needing to go to the toilet to relieve your deli belly. So make sure that you've got a whole range of medications that are precautionary that you carry with you just in case you're feeling unwell. Also, one extra medication that is highly recommended is called Diamox. And Diamox is a medication that you take in the lead up to going to altitude, and it helps your body cope with altitude until your body can acclimatise to that altitude. So talk to your doctor about Diamox. I highly recommend it. Also, the team in India will instruct you on when to take Diamox, what days you need it, depending on what's happening on the next day. So make sure you get your hands on some Diamox too. Number 2 is physical fitness. Now, this comes in 2 stages as well that I want to talk about your fitness. So firstly, let's talk about physical fitness. So I highly recommend you go onto a fitness regime 2 months out from your departure time. And in particular, you need to be working on leg strength and core strength, as well as cardiovascular. Now, consider this. You're going to be riding up to 6 to 10 hours a day, each day, back to back, with no rest in between. You're also going to be riding on a lot of very ordinary roads and a lot of off-roads, which means you'll be spending a lot of time standing up on the pegs while you're riding, and you'll spend all of your time utilising your core strength. Now, if there's a weakness in your core strength or your leg strength, this is going to make the ride more challenging and, to be honest, a little bit miserable. So make sure that physically you're up to the task of being able to ride up to 10 hours a day sometimes on really rough roads, just so you can enjoy it as much as possible. Now, the second part of the fitness comment or tip is cardiovascular fitness. Now, going into altitude, this is where I struggled. I didn't prepare enough. I got altitude sickness. I didn't acclimatise as fast as I should have, which meant for the first 3 days of being in altitude, I felt quite ill. My strength was limited, and it did make me not enjoy it as much as I could have, and really, probably mostly my own fault. So make sure that one of the recommendations is, if you can do for 5 kilometres walk/jog within 45 minutes, that's a decent sort of a comparison to say your cardiovascular system is strong enough. But obviously the better and the fitter you are with your cardiovascular system, the more chance you've got of acclimatizing faster and having your heart and lungs being able to work in the altitude. Now, something that I didn't realize, that even once you're acclimatized, once I started feeling good in the altitude, you walk up 3 or 4 steps or a small hill and you're still struggling to breathe, even when you're acclimatized. So this is where your cardiovascular health will help you a lot. You'll just be able to adapt to these areas a whole lot faster and enjoy them more than perhaps I did, because I wasn't very fit and I wasn't strong enough. Okay, number 3, you're going to be spending time on some roads that really leave a lot to be desired. I mean, let's face it, this is the Himalayas. A road can be built one day and washed out the next day by a landslide. So it's just the nature of the game. That's why we go there, to experience these crazy roads. Adventure gear is a must. The more protection you can have, the better, because chances are you're going to have a fall here or there. I was lucky enough that I didn't, but a lot of the guys had falls, and because they were wearing their adventure gear and their safety gear, they were all okay. There was no injuries at all. So what do I recommend? Number 1, buy some good quality adventure gear, pants and jackets that are fully padded, obviously a good quality helmet and gloves, and boots. Now, it's not good enough to just buy them. You need to do a shakedown run with. So in particular, I bought a set of dry rider gear. It fit well, it seemed okay. I didn't do a shakedown run in Australia before I left. So what happened was, where my knee pads were situated, they were so uncomfortable and they just wore away at the skin on my knee when I was wearing them day in and day out. Because I think that a lot of time in Australia, when you go for a ride or an adventure ride, you might go for one day or maybe just a weekend. You rarely ride 9 days back to back with the same gear on. So it's important that you do a good shakedown run, make sure it fits properly, make sure there's no hot spots where the gear is rubbing or pressing on, because that will affect you down the track. Make all your adjustments at home in Australia before you go, just so it's like pulling on a pair of comfy pajamas when you get there. Number 4 is food. Now, I've got a sensitive gut. I've always known I've had a sensitive gut everywhere I go internationally. I love my food. I eat all the wrong stuff, but I always get ill. But that's a trade-off that I'm happy with. In this trip, you've got to be aware that, number 1, it'll almost be curries all the way. The Indian food all the way. There are no options when you're traveling on this trip. There's no cafes or McDonald's on the corner or anything like that. You'll pull into a roadside house and you'll get fed a choice of curry, dal, breads, rice, or Maggi, which is 2-minute noodles. So for someone like me that's sensitive to curries, like I love a good curry, but to eat curries day in and day out, that was hardcore for me. So what I had to do was eat Maggi. So all of the roadside places have Maggi, which is the same as our 2-minute noodles here, although it still is spicy over there. So keep that in mind, that if you love your curries, you're gonna have a ball. All the boys on the trip that were used to curries were having 3 or 4 servings in every meal and absolutely loving it. Me, I was struggling. In fact, I lost 5 kilos in 10 days because there's a lot of food I just couldn't eat. I was just feeling unwell. So bear that in mind. Also, most of the villages that you'll travel through and stop to eat are Buddhist villages, which means that there'll be no meat available for you at all. You'll have access to eggs, omelettes, eggs in your curry, but you won't have access to any meat. Chicken, lamb, obviously no beef is available in all of India anyway, because cows are sacred. So keep that in mind. If you are someone that has a meat dominant diet, take some beef jerky with you, take some biltong with you, take canned food if you need to. The one thing that I struggled with was energy, because I couldn't get enough food in for nutrients for energy. So take a lot of canned food and processed foods if you need to, just so you're making sure you're getting enough energy throughout your trip, because you might not be able to get it from the curries if you don't eat curry like me. Okay, something that I didn't think of, but I'm glad I was told about before I left, is toilet paper. We have our beautiful, comfortable 3-ply toilet paper here. In India, there's no 3-ply toilet paper. But more importantly, when you go to roadside bathrooms, at cafes and lunch areas, they do not supply toilet paper for you. There's nothing in there other than a toilet and a bucket of water. So make sure that you carry your toilet paper with you because you're going to need it, and even some of the hotels that you stay at only supply you with the smallest amount of toilet paper. And if you're a bit like me and you're having a bit of an upset stomach, you're going to need more. So I took 2 big rolls of 3-ply toilet paper, and that was enough for the trip. So I would consider taking 2 or 3 rolls, keep it in your bag. When you're riding, make sure it's in your tank bag or somewhere handy, because if you need to go to the toilet during the day, you're going to need your own toilet paper. Okay, at altitude, the most important thing is hydration. You need to be as hydrated as possible to be able to handle the differences in altitude as you travel through all of these beautiful mountain passes. So you need to get either a camelback or carry bottles of water, and it's recommended that you have up to 3 litres of fluid a day when you're on the road. So that feels like a lot of fluid, 3 litres, but you actually rip through that in no time at all. So it's more easily absorbed, take electrolytes like hydrolyte, throw in some Baroccas. In Leh, you can actually get a cool product called, I think it was called LRS, but it was just a sachet of electrolytes that you throw into your camelback each day as well. You need to have that much water, and you need to have electrolytes to make sure you're absorbing it properly and your body's getting what it needs to handle the duration of this trip. Not only the hard work on the bike, but also the elevation and the altitude as well. And to be honest, some days I'd have 3 to 4 litres of water and I still haven't had a pee yet because my body was utilising all of that water and I still wasn't hydrated enough. So important. Camelback, get the biggest camelback you can get. I had a 3 litre one. Make sure you're drinking throughout the day. You will need it. You've got to make sure you stay hydrated for the altitude. The weather in the Himalayas is so changeable. We had 34-degree days, followed by 5-degree mornings to get started again in the morning. So prepare for the heat, prepare for the cold, because you're likely to have both in equal amounts throughout your trip because of the altitude changes. Not only that, the sun is harsh in the Himalayas. You think the Australian sun is tough? It's tougher over there. Got to make sure you have balaclavas or scarves to protect you from the dust, as well as the wind and the sun too. And obviously, copious amounts of sunscreen. Even though you're wearing a helmet, you're going to be affected by the sun. The sun is rough there, so make sure you protect yourself as much as you can for the duration of the trip. If you're traveling with Roaming Horizons, there is a support vehicle there to support you, to support the whole crew. They've got a mechanic on site so they can change tyres on the side of the road, do any sort of repairs required. But more importantly, if you're feeling unwell at all for any reason, there are spare riders in the truck. So you can jump into the truck for a rest for a couple of hours. The spare rider will jump onto your bike and ride for a duration until you're feeling better. And then when you feel better, you jump back on the bike, the rider gets back into the truck. Happy families. Utilise this where needed. I utilised it for half a day, and it was the greatest thing that I could have done. When I was feeling a bit unwell with altitude sickness, the mechanic jumped on my bike for half a day. After lunch, I felt better. I got back on my bike and I spent the rest of the day on the bike and the rest of the trip on the bike as well. It was something that I needed and something that is very sensible to use when needed as well. Look, there's going to be opportunities in these little villages where you'll be able to buy some produce from the locals, help out the local economy. A lot of the places, they dry apricots in the sun and then package them up and sell them to tourists so you can have snacks along the road. And they are delicious, I must say. Now, I understand that it's Indian tradition to bargain down to the lowest possible amount to get the best possible deal when you're buying anything. Now, this is only my opinion, my personal opinion. In Australia, we're so lucky that even if you're not wealthy, our dollar is worth a lot in India. So what I would suggest, if you wanted to bargain people down for sport, because that's what you do, that's great, I understand, I get it. But I would also say, pay a good, decent amount for anything that you get over there because it makes a difference in their life. $5 to us is worth a lot to them, so be generous. I highly recommend, my personal opinion, be generous. Don't try and get the cheapest possible thing you can get there because these guys are living in mud huts and just drying fruit for a living. So be kind, be generous, offer them more. It won't make a difference to you, but it'll make a big difference to them. Just my personal opinion. Okay, we're coming to the end of the video. There is one more hot tip that I'm going to share with you. But firstly, just remember, this is the first of a series of my Himalayan videos, team. So make sure you hit subscribe, tap that bell icon to be notified, because every week for the next 4 or 5 weeks, there's going to be a Himalayan adventure video that's popping up on YouTube, and I don't want you to miss out if this interests you, because we had an amazing time. Roaming Horizons was an amazing company to travel with, and I want all of you guys to go and see what I saw, because it's really cool. Okay, the last hot tip, and the most important one, don't fart in India. You might get a surprise.